So recently, Wargaming held a Q&A session between the Blitz developers and the community, and of course some interesting questions came up regarding the future of the game, and I think you're going to be fairly interested in a lot of them. Now, real quick, I'm going to be going through and explaining the compiled information for this Q&A session, but I do need to give credit to Andy Poe for compiling the information and to Blitz Post for posting the information. That way I could actually go ahead and make this video. They didn't do it specifically for me, but I'm still going to thank them nonetheless. And the first thing that we'll be taking a look at are map changes / additions. So essentially, the community asked Wargaming what they were going to do with mines regarding higher tiers. Some of you may know all this already, but mines is a fairly small map, and tier 10 specifically just doesn't do very well on it. It feels a little bit cramped, and the community did ask Blitz about this in the Q&A session. However, Wargaming responded with this sentence here saying that mines would not be removed from the map pool for higher tiers as they believe it performs well. They are, however, looking into reworking it. So hopefully this rework is probably something like PBR textures, where they go and change the map just a little bit to balance it out a bit. But for the most part, it still seems like mines is just going to stay in higher tiers, which is a little bit unfortunate, but hey, you can't win everything. Now, the next thing of note here is that a new map called Lagoon is going to be coming into the game, hopefully within the next few updates. So, in case you're wondering, I believe Lagoon is the map that I actually did a leak video on a few months ago now, I think it is. But it seems that, as far as I can tell, that is the map. So, here are some images in case you're interested in knowing what that looks like. Now, apparently there are some larger maps in their prototype stages. However, Wargaming believes that lower-end devices will suffer as a result, hence the reason they haven't really gone too far with them. However, bigger maps seems like it might be a potential possibility, perhaps within the next few months, maybe the next few years. We really don't know when it comes to Wargaming, but it does seem that they are at least planning to attempt some sort of larger maps in the future, however long that may be. Now, a really interesting thing regarding a graphical update here is that weather is coming soon. Soon for Wargaming could literally mean another year or so, but weather is coming soon and will be implemented in future maps as they are releasing. So as far as I can tell, this will probably be something that will be available in PBR maps. And if I was gonna guess which update, I would say the most likely update is the birthday update. I can't remember, I think it's like 10.0 now. But so I think it's gonna be coming around sometime then, but it could come earlier, it could come later. It's kind of unknown, but interesting that weather is coming in, and I think that would be a really cool graphic thing to add into the game. Now, Desert Sands, Port Bay, and Dead Rail will be receiving reworks in the near future, with Desert Sands coming first. So by reworks, I'm gonna guess it has something to do with PBR textures. It seems to me if Wargaming's gonna do any editing to a map, they'll probably retexture it, but that isn't a guarantee, so maybe it's just balance changes. We'll have to wait and see for those. Now, day and night variants will also make its appearance in some maps in the future. So if I recall right, I believe Vineyards had like a dusk setting at one point, but now it has a daytime setting. So it seems that maybe a day and night variant for maps is just going to be a thing. I think it would really help kind of shake up just the playing the game, because I'm going to be honest, playing the game over and over and over again can get a little boring. But if you shake it up like this a little bit by having a day version or a night version or maybe even a dusk version, depending on how far they're willing to go, could really shake it up and make it feel a little bit fresh here and there. Now, they plan to implement this system in 2023, which is, go figure, this year. So perhaps later this year, again, maybe in the anniversary update. Now, another thing going on here is they are not making any boost positions on the maps accessible again. I think, if I recall, there have been a few points in Blitz's history where there were parts on the map where you couldn't, or at least weren't supposed to go. And, of course, people being people would figure out how to push their tanks over. So I guess somebody asked if they would be reverting those changes. I don't know why Wargaming would. And unsurprisingly, they said they would not, so that's something to keep in mind. So if you want to do funny bounces or something, you're probably going to have to find new glitches because, let's be honest, Wargaming seems to add as many as they remove with each new map. Now, there also seems to have been a question that arose of a map ban feature. I'm not quite sure what they meant by this. This was a little bit vague. It might have even been translated from something. But the straight text says there will not be a map ban feature. According to the map developer, World of Tanks Blitz is another game with its own set of rules and features. I think what they're talking about here is I don't know if Lestis Studios in their version of the game maybe allowed you to select a certain map that you never wanted to play on. I'm not really sure what's going on there. It seems a little bit vague, but either way, it seems, as far as I can tell, that you'll never really be able to just select a map that you never want to play on, which kind of makes sense. For example, let's say you set it to you only ever wanted to play one map. That would get not only boring, but be really hard on the matchmaker. Now, more maps will be receiving special intro music. So, if you didn't know, in the beginning of every match, there's some intro music. I don't know if maybe Wargaming's copy and pasting them or if they're reworking this. It's just another update that's interesting and we'll probably see in the next, year or so is going to be my guess. But moving away from maps now and moving on to tech. So apparently Blitz Post said that this particular section is extremely summarized. So this is going to be probably a fairly not super in-depth per se on the tech side. It's going to be a very good summary, but if you really want to know the nitty-gritty, they do say to go check Wargaming's official server for all of the information. If I find that, I will put a link to it. However, you may have to do some research because I have not found it. Now, their public API is no longer being developed. So think what is it, Blitz stars? So they'll tell your statistics and stuff like that. So they use what's called Wargaming's public API, which they'll tap into, get the information, and etc. And then they'll just tell you what your statistics are. However, with that public API not being updated anymore, it's going to be a bit more, or perhaps even a lot more difficult to track stats and such for players. So you may see things like Blitz stars or any other stat tracker for Blitz kind of fall behind. This is really unfortunate because a lot of players really do like to check their statistics online, me included. So hopefully if Wargaming is just going to stop developing this, they will kind of counter it by giving us more in-depth stats in the game itself. That would be nice. However, if they could just keep the API up to date, that would also be probably the easier of the two. But Wargaming will do what they do, and it seems that they're just going to stop development for that particular API. Now, they are slowly phasing out older devices, so I really think that at this point, Blitz is starting to get to the point where they're not solely focused on newer devices. They are still very much caring about older ones, but for particularly old ones, I think they're kind of starting to phase them out. I don't think they're phasing out anything like super new, but like I'm going to guess things like the original iPhone 2 maybe, or whatever old versions, i.e. the ones that probably just about nobody has anymore. They're probably going to just start phasing those out in the with the reward of actually being able to push the game to a slightly higher graphical level, or perhaps even a much higher graphical level, which is really cool. And of course, just really, really old hardware does eventually get phased out at some point. And because of that, Wargaming has said that the player base will soon be able to start handling things such as more PBR and gun marks. So really quick thing to note here. So people for a long time have asked for marks of excellence, which is a thing in World of Tanks PC. So people have been asking and asking. Wargaming's like, you know what? We're not doing gun marks. We just can't do it. So they gave us that, I don't even remember what it is. It's so annoying. The badge or whatever, that little annoying sticker that goes next to your tank name, which can look cool but is kind of worthless. That's what they gave us instead of marks of excellence. But they said here gun marks, which is, I believe, associated with the marks of excellence. So we may actually see actual marks of excellence in the game, which would be absolutely fantastic, especially for the people who have been asking and asking and asking for this to be implemented into the game. provided that is what they are talking about here. Now, Blitz's engine is connected to the frame rate, so that's why VSync will break the game. So basically, if you've played on the game on a variety of different devices, you might be familiar with the fact that there are very set number of frame rates. You, to my knowledge, can only have 30, 60, or 120. I don't believe 240 is really an option, besides what mobile device goes to 240 anyway. So they're just saying that the reason for this is that the server or the engine is connected to the frame rate. So if you start to unlock it or do really crazy things with the frame rate, it will break the game. Hence the reason they don't give us this option, and hence the reason you can't go with crazy frame rates. And they have said that they have no plans, currently at least, to change this, which makes sense. Let's be honest, 120 is probably plenty for this game. I've played on all the different FPSs. I would say 60's plenty fine, 30's a little bit choppy, and 120, it has a little bit of an edge, but it's not like a normal FPS game where it's like a huge leap, at least not in my personal experience. But moving past the FPS here, so they are recycling some World of Tanks assets that are possible to be recycled. So some assets from World of Tanks PC, they will then go and use in World of Tanks Blitz, which is really cool. Now, another thing that's going on is it's highly unlikely that we will see replay rewinding in a very long time, if ever. This is something that's kind of annoying. Actually, at times can be really annoying, especially for someone like me who likes to record gameplay and maybe accidentally skipped over that part that was interesting. I have to back out of the whole replay, start it over again, and hope I don't skip it again. It's kind of annoying. It really would be cool if there was a rewind feature. I don't know why Wargaming doesn't do this, but it clearly is not something that's high on their list of priorities, at least for a very long time. And also, there are no current plans to officially support modding. So you might know, I've even done like a tiny bit of Blitz modding myself. Textures and stuff are super cool. Unless they're cheat ones, don't do those, avoid those. I've never done them, but I do know people who have tried doing them, and they usually get banned. But that's probably why they're not officially supporting modding, which is understandable, maybe a little bit less so for the modding community themselves. But honestly, the modding community is pretty big, and people can get done just about anything they want within the rules, of course. But I would say modding not being officially supported, not a huge deal. Plenty of people still do it anyway. But now moving on to the esports section. Now, they are researching into adding PC major tournaments. So I actually did a video on this, or similar to this. It was a video on all of the banned, in quotes, they're just not allowed, all of the banned inputs for tank tournaments, and I'll post a link to that in the upper right hand corner. But basically in that video I was discussing specifically the fact that PC didn't get pro tournaments, which was kind of annoying but understandable at the same time because the game started as a mobile game, so that's kind of what their focus has been. And PC has just been kind of shoved out because they don't want any kind of debate going on in between on which is the more OP input. But the potential of having PC major tournaments or PC pro tournaments would be really cool. I might even play them, probably not, but there was at least the option, because even though I can play on iPad, it's really not my favorite, and I really don't like it. So PC, that's what I'm comfortable with, so that would be really cool if they could do it. Now, they did say that this decision rides a lot on the audience and participation that would come from this platform. So basically, if you are PC and you main PC and you want to see these, they're saying basically it's kind of up to you and how much you want to have this, which is very interesting. Now, even though the map bans won't be available for pubs, map bans, I have no idea what this is. They're looking into adding both map and tank bans for comp. So not really sure what that means. Maybe in if by comp or competition they mean ratings or something. Again, this part I don't know if maybe it was translated or something. It's not something I really understand, but still it's something. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just to block smashers out of tournaments. I have no idea. But then offlines are a possibility. I'm not sure what offlines are. I think maybe this might be a way to play training rooms offline, possibly. I'm not entirely sure there. But again, it all depends on time and resources. So moving on to tank balance, we've got the 50B is getting buffed again. So the 50B, man, they cannot stop touching the thing. Ever since it started one way, and then it got nuffed. I have no idea what they did to it in, what was it, update 9.5, whatever update really changed tier 10, it got changed there. And then since then, it might have received a buff or a nerf, not sure. And then it had PBR, and now it's being buffed again. I have a feeling they kind of just nerfed it a little bit too hard, and they're just slowly buffing it over time to try to fix it. Either way, 50B being touched again, unsurprising. Now, the next thing is that the rationale behind the FOSH changes was to make the line more consistent. However, they will buff the tank again if it's unperforming. So I believe either there was a nerf or there's going to be a nerf for the FOSH. I'm a little bit behind on my Blitz updates and stuff, but basically they're going to buff it, or they're going to nerf it or have nerfed it, and they're just testing to see if it's underperforming or possibly even overperforming, and they'll do another balance update at some point potentially. Now, the Type 71's armor is not being nerfed anytime soon. If you like the Type 71 and you play a lot of the Type 71, this is fantastic news. If you don't have the Type 71 or you hate going against the Type 71, this is horrendous news because you don't want that thick of an armor when going against it. But of course, you love it when you have it, so nothing really to speak of there. It's just not changing. Now, they may rebalance the TVP by the end of the year. I don't know if they meant 2022 because that year is long gone. It's probably 2023, but basically I believe the TVP is the one that's kind of broken right now. It's just got a very good clip, so they're just saying they may rebalance it either in the form of a nerf, which is probably the more likely, or maybe a buff, which would be kind of weird. Now, the 30B, not to be confused with the 50B, the 30B may get a buff, but not very soon. So basically what's going on with that tank in particular, it's just not performing very well. If you ask anyone, you look up any of Droodle's videos, or really anyone who's played the tank before, they'll say it's kind of meh for the most part, and it seems it might get a buff, which is probably kind of needed. Now, Swedish mediums will be in the game in 2024 at the earliest. So apparently people have been asking about Swedish mediums. So Wargaming is planning to not do them for a very long time. In fact, that's about a year at the very least. But then again, Wargaming may surprise us and say, hey, look, Swedish mediums are in the game, go play them. So yeah, you never really know, but it seems that probably not for another year or so. Now, the FE4202 is getting a rebalance soon. I'm not sure if this is a nerf or a buff. Wargaming just says they rebalance, and then they'll figure out what's going to happen when they cross the bridge. But either way, it is going to get or potentially going to get a rebalance at some point. Now, they are not changing the Minotauro anytime soon, so that thing has beastly armor, except unless you're going against other tank destroyers. And it doesn't seem that they're really interested in changing it too much, which is not really surprising. It is a new-ish tank, all things considered. Now, in answering whether the 62A or the 140 or the T100 would be receiving any changes soon, they said yes in 2024, which I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to call that soon. That's still another year away, but they're planning to change a lot of the Russian tier 10 medium/lights. So yeah, those are some changes that might eventually end up coming in probably the distant-ish future. The Sturzvon K will be getting rebalanced in an unknown period of time. So the Sturzvon K literally came out for the last Christmas, and either it's underperforming and they're going to buff it, which is unsurprising, or they're going to nerf it just a few months after, or unknown period of time after having released it. So it may be getting a rebalance at some point, which is partly annoying. Maybe if it's underperforming, this might be a good thing, but I've really heard mixed reviews on this one. Either people say that it's kind of garbage, and other people say that it's absolutely broken. So who knows what Wargaming's planning to do there. The Object 260 is getting buffed this year. Well, at least that's what Wargaming says. You know, they changed their plans, but they are planning to buff the Object 260 in this year. But a lot of people have said that it's underpowered, and so getting a buff is no surprise whatsoever. They say no plans currently, but they are thinking of buffing the old premiums, such as the Type 59. Okay, I'm a little bit iffy on changing the statistics on premium tanks. However, so far I've only ever seen them buff them, so I guess that's okay, so long as they're not making it pay to win it or anything. Italian heavies are also planned, but not in the near future, so this could be a few months, this could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years, who knows, but they are planning at some point to add Italian heavies. Now, autoloader tanks are being reviewed for changes, but no details were given. So I don't know if these were specific autoloaders or if they're just all autoloaders. Maybe they think autoloaders are OP. Maybe they think they're broken. Maybe they think they're underpowered. I have no idea what they're thinking here. I just know that they are looking at autoloader tanks of some kind for some sort of changes. And then lastly, to kind of finish this off, there was a statement from the tank balancing developer. Basically what they said is, and I quote, "I want to globally change tier 8, but I don't have a good solution because there are so many premiums." Not surprising, tier 8 is absolutely flooded with premiums. In fact, if you played any tier 8 game, you'd be hard-pressed to get into a game that did not have a premium or a collector of some kind. So it's kind of understandable why they can't really do much to it yet. But it seems like they do want to globally change it, which could be good, but will likely not be great. I don't want to be a downer, but considering what they've done with some of the other tiers, changing the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle, doesn't seem to go very well, but I'm not going to stress it right now. It's probably something that will happen in the future, hopefully within a few months, maybe a year, so that they can really sit down and think as to what they're going to do. But anyway, those are the changes or the Q&A that Wargaming held and the future of Blitz, or at least the planned future of Blitz. There could even be more that Wargaming hadn't mentioned or that wasn't asked or maybe wasn't in this document. But either way, there's some good things, maybe a few bad things, but I would say overall in this case that I would say their plans are hopeful. I think there are a lot of good things that are coming and not really anything that seems to be bad. Mostly graphics updates and lots of fun new changes and potentially, again, I want to stress this, if they actually meant gun marks, and that is marks of excellence, kudos to Wargaming if they can actually get that done, because not everyone, but a lot of people have been asking that. But anyway, that's all I have for now. Thanks for sticking around for this incredibly long video, and with that, I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, have fun, good luck, and happy tanking.